Am I the antagonist for acting inappropriate with my boyfriend in front of children? We are both males. My family did not react positively when I came out, but they have mostly stopped expressing their opinions aloud. I'm aware that they still discuss it in private, but they refrain from saying anything directly to us. It took time for them to accept my boyfriend, but now they actively involve him in conversations, and my 87-year-old grandmother even referred to him as a very lovely young man, while affectionately pinching his cheek, which is a significant sign of approval from her. The one thing they disapprove of is public displays of affection between us. They often try to keep us apart to prevent any perceived scandal like holding hands or kissing. Recently, we were invited to one of my cousin's birthday parties. In the kitchen, I found my boyfriend very endearing and kissed him while calling him my pretty doll. Unfortunately, one of my younger cousins walked in at that moment and, not understanding our relationship, went to tell the other kids excitedly. This led to childlike reactions of both disgust and curiosity. My nephew even asked if my boyfriend was now my wife. The adults did not find the situation amusing, and my mother lectured me for nearly 30 minutes. Afterward, my boyfriend asked if we could leave. I insisted we stay for dinner and then depart immediately after. Here's where I may be in the wrong. As we returned to the table, I made a point of holding my boyfriend's hand and requested my niece to switch seats to sit next to him. Throughout dinner, I continued to use pet names for him and gave him small kisses on the cheek. The atmosphere was tense, with the adults mostly ignoring us but glaring occasionally, and the younger kids giggling whenever I expressed affection toward my boyfriend. He appeared uncomfortable and hardly looked up from his plate. We left promptly after dinner, and my boyfriend was quiet on the drive home. Upon arriving, he broke down in tears. I did my best to console him, knowing that I am partly responsible for his distress. Later in the evening, my mother sent a lengthy message stating that our behavior was immature and inappropriate. Until we stop imposing our choices on others, we are not welcome at future family gatherings. Your family may be bigoted and intolerant, but subjecting your boyfriend to that situation was cruel and unnecessary. You owe him a sincere apology and a promise to never put him through something like that again. It's important to prioritize his emotional well-being and safety in this homophobic situation. Your family may be terrible, but you need to make things right with your boyfriend. Am I the antagonist for inviting BF to a party for work and not leaving when he wanted to? My boyfriend, 37, and I, 29, have been together for a year and a half now. Prior to this, he has never been to a work party with me. This was my first one I was invited to. I am in pharmaceutical sales, and a provider invited me to a fundraiser for her son's baseball team. It was important to me to show up and support. It was at a bar, adults only. They had bingo, raffles, food, etc. My boyfriend always complains we never do anything when we nearly do something every weekend. He also puts it on me a lot to plan things. And then if we don't have something planned, he gets upset because he's bored. So I told him he's coming with me to this work party, and that it's important to me to go and to have his support also. He immediately just seemed turned off by the idea, but never flat out said he doesn't want to go. He just asked where it was and how long it was. I told him we don't have to stay long, but I don't want to show up and just leave because that would look bad. We got there, my other coworker was there, and then another one and his wife. We had to sit at the bar because there were no tables left. So making conversation with everyone was difficult. But we ended up getting food, having drinks, playing bingo, putting money towards raffles to win baskets and such. So 2 hours into it, he starts asking when they are going to be calling the raffles and such, never asking or saying he wants to leave. I told him I'm not sure, but I'm having a good time and want to wait to see if we win something and stay longer. Also didn't want to just show up and just leave. I asked him what he would rather be doing, since he always complains we never do anything, and that we'd most likely would just go home and sit on the couch since he had nothing planned, and then he would be upset about that. I offered to get him an Uber and he said no. After the games were over and all raffle baskets were won, which is what I wanted to wait for since I put money towards them, we left. We were there a total of 3 hours. 6:39, 30. Once we got in the car, he blew up on me saying I gaslit him into coming by, saying we didn't have to stay long, that I forced him to sit somewhere awkwardly for 3 hours, and that he was silent for 3 hours, and that nobody would want to do that. That I made him spend money and there was no point in him being there. That he didn't need to be there. I simply didn't respond because I didn't have it in me to fight at that point, plus I was driving. He had a few drinks and I just know how that goes, so didn't see it as a good time to discuss it. We got home and he tried to talk about it again and I was silent, didn't want to argue and yell. He then said he was leaving and I said okay, bye. I texted him saying that I didn't want to argue and yell, but that I was hurt. That in my eyes it came across very selfish and he made it about him. That I didn't need him there but wanted him there because it was something important to me, and his support means the world to me. This is what your future will look like if you stay with him. He's being an unsupportive baby who gets pissed because he's bored and acts like a toddler demanding attention. Most of us have had to attend work-based events with our partners, but this self-absorbed guy is not conducive to a productive partnership. Why are you still with this dead weight? Am I the antagonist for telling my dad you are not a good husband? She is a good wife. I, a 19-year-old female, live with my parents and my 2 brothers. We had a get-together at my home for some of my dad's friends. My dad was out the entire day, and my mom was cooking and preparing for the party. My dad came home when the guests had already arrived. My mom told my dad that she is not talking to him and continued talking about why he was late. She said all this with a rude tone. My dad lost his temper on my mom's few sentences and threw his cell phone, his slippers, not in my mom's direction, but overall began acting irrationally. The guests were present and I think they heard it. My mom became very sad and my dad remained silent the entire dinner. At night, my mom came to me and said she will not say sorry, and she is extremely hurt. She never expected such a harsh reaction. My brother and I, both 19 as well, went to talk to my dad about why he acted in such a way. He started acting out and saying my mom should have watched her tone, and that's not the way a woman should talk to her husband. At this point, I lost my cool and said some hurtful things. I told him that his reaction was too much. Throwing things is not a normal response to a few sentences. He said it's not his fault they had no fights in their 20 years of marriage, to which I said it's because of my mom. You are not a good husband, she is a good wife, which I still think is true. My mom never fights with my dad, but whenever she says anything harsh, my dad reacts very badly. This seemed to hurt him, and my brother now thinks I messed up by saying this, but someone needed to tell him. P.S. He is an amazing man, an amazing father, but I think when it comes to mom, he is only nice as long as she does what he wants. In the end, my dad gave in and said he's only doing it for my brother. He came to the room where my mom was and sat there in silence, then left after a couple of minutes. We convinced our mom to go back to her room. Now I am expected to apologize to my dad, but I think if I apologize this time, he would think he did nothing wrong, giving him more confidence that he is always right. I still don't understand how, being 19, I have the power to voice my opinion without any reaction, but my mom can't even nag a little. One thing I have observed in couples who never fight is that one person usually puts their wants, feelings, and sometimes needs aside. Some of the strongest couples I have ever witnessed still have fights. Sometimes our parents need a reality check, and no one else in their life will give it to them. His reaction is just not acceptable, especially if his guests heard it. He needs to see sense, and though your comments may be slightly crude, it got the message across. Am I the antagonist because I asked a woman to play to the level of her teammates? I am a 30-year-old male, ultimate frisbee player. My girlfriend Riley and I have been trying to get a coeducational game going for 5 years, but the male players refuse to act right. They would never ever pass to women no matter what. They claimed they'd pass if the women got better, but excluding the women gave them no way to get better. Sometimes, if a very attractive woman happened to join, they would all fall over themselves to help her, ensuring she never came back. Riley and I faced the music that we would have to start a women's-only game. We share all responsibilities and it's extremely important to us. 20 IB women now show up regularly. We focus on confidence building and inclusion, just as much as skill building. The games are fun, versus competitive or highly skilled. We have a player named Shay, who identified as a boy a very long time ago. Shay fits in very well, and nobody has ever had an issue with her. Recently, a new player started coming, Athena. Until recently, I knew Athena as an extremely competitive player named Mark, but I had no problem with this, and neither did anyone else. The problem is Athena and Shay are different as night and day. While I'm not seeing much difference between Athena and Mark in their gameplay, most of the other women jump a few inches high, while Athena can jump above most of their shoulders. None of the others besides Riley can throw the disc farther than a few dozen meters, but Athena can throw it the length of the entire field and beyond. Athena is also much faster than any of the other women. None of this would matter as much as the way Athena plays, but unfortunately the same issues are there. Athena can throw the farthest, so she assumes she's always going to be the one to pull. When Athena has the disc, usually, she won't pass to bad players. Athena gets stroppy if she's open and not passed to. Athena is able to disrupt a very large majority of the other team's passes. She also constructively criticizes people a lot, which upsets shy or less secure players. Finally, Athena disrupted a pass where the other woman was not a high-level player, and Athena came down like a ton of bricks. This completely changed the vibe of the game, and as soon as it was over, quickly, most players left. The next week, less than 50% of usual players showed up. Riley and I were upset, and Riley asked me to talk to Athena since I knew her previously. I told Athena that the vibe is different here from the co-ed or men's game. It's about inclusion and confidence building. It's about giving everyone an equal chance and encouraging them. It's not about dominating over others or criticizing them. Athena said I was intimidated by a woman who was a superior player than me. I told Athena it's great she's superior, but she has gifts the other women don't have, and I need her to play to their level. Athena was outraged and said I don't respect her as a woman. I said I do respect her as a woman, but I don't respect the way she's playing. Am I the antagonist? It sounds like Athena is not a good fit for your women's group, as she seems more focused on aggressive competition rather than high-spirited fun. It's not uncommon to ask players to adjust their level of play to match the group in adult recreational leagues. Hopefully, social pressure from other teammates can help Athena see that her behavior is not appropriate for the group dynamic. My husband's ex-wife went off on me for trying to beeb her child's mom and threatened to call the police. Why did she react like this? My spouse and I have been married for 2 years, together for 4. My spouse, his ex-wife Laura, have been separated for 7. They have a 5-year-old daughter, Sarah, together. Their custody is pretty cordial. Laura has their daughter from Sunday, Tuesday, and we have her Thursday, Saturday. Wednesdays, Laura drops her off at school and we pick her up. Holidays are supposed to switch, but we always do them together for Sarah. I see Laura a lot and she is okay to me. Again, if for nothing but Sarah. She is a great mom from what I can tell. Anyway, so Sarah has been begging to go to Disney for a long time now, and my spouse finally said we'd take her. Laura was okay with that. So this past weekend we went. Sarah is obsessed with the Disney princesses. Obviously, she's 5, and especially Cinderella and Elsa, and I think it's because she's blonde, lol. Disney has this princess boutique thing where basically they will dress your child up as any princess they want and do their hair, nails, and all that for them. Sarah was so excited and said she was going to pick Elsa. She wanted me to wear something blue as well so that we could match, as I'm also blonde and watch the movies with her a lot. So at Disney I wore a light blue workout dress and a white ribbon in my hair. When they dressed Sarah up as Elsa, my spouse took a few pictures of us and her. When Laura asked for a picture, my spouse sent her one of Sarah in the chair getting her hair done, one of her posing with Elsa, and one of me holding her. When Laura received this picture, she called me while we were still at Disney. I thought maybe it was something important, so I answered. Laura went off. She cussed me out saying I was pretending to be Sarah's mother. I needed to leave. I needed to stop being such a disrespectful person. I ended up just hanging up on her and told my spouse to handle it. He ignored it until we got back to the hotel that night and called her. Laura told him that us wearing the same thing was so disrespectful and that I looked like her mom and people were going to get confused and assume I was. She said I was disrespecting her by doing this. I suspect she called me a few things my spouse didn't repeat. When we got home, Laura showed up unannounced. She tried to take Sarah back on a day that wasn't hers, and when Sarah wasn't even ready, my spouse and her started to argue, which made Sarah cry. They don't argue in front of her, and I ended up just taking Sarah out of the room. Well, that was a huge mistake. Laura then went off on me trying to kidnap her child and called me a disrespectful person and a disgusting person in front of her own daughter. My spouse ended up kicking her out and threatening to call the police if she didn't leave. Laura then threatened to call them too, saying she'd tell them we didn't have permission to take Sarah on her days. So all of that is it to say, what the heck? It's Sunday now, so Sarah went to her mother's this morning. Laura apologized to my spouse but hasn't spoken to me at all. What about this Disney thing made her react like that? What did I do? I would never try to replace Laura as Sarah's mother. That's not my place at all. I don't understand what happened. If you have any thoughts on what I should do, please share. Wow, so he was still married and sleeping with her while he was with you? That's messed up. And he let her think they were getting back together even though they had been separated for 7 years with a 5-year-old daughter? Definitely doesn't sound healthy. Am I the antagonist for calling someone's family situation messed up? My son Max, 9 years old, has a best friend, Felix. Felix has a half-brother, Miles, that is only 6 weeks younger than him. My son is also friends with Miles, he just gets on better with Felix. He has another half-brother who is 7 months older, 2 half-siblings that are teenagers, and a 6-year-old full brother. None of the moms are still with the dad. Felix's mom doesn't work and looks after Miles after school. She also fairly regularly has Max over for playdates. On the occasions where I've asked if Felix wanted to come to our house after school, his mom has requested that I also take Miles, with her reasoning being that it would be unfair to Miles to invite one but not the other, and I wouldn't have if they were twins. I would. To me, it always just feels like she's trying to saddle me with another kid so she doesn't have to look after the one that's not hers without having the other to entertain him. I think that Max and Felix deserve some time to play just each other without a third kid hanging on. This has now happened 3 times, where I've invited Felix over and had to also invite Miles. Last week I invited Felix over after school on Friday and let her know it would be Felix only. She requested that if I wanted to have only Felix for a playdate that I have him over on the weekends instead of the weekdays, as Miles would be at his mom's on the weekend anyway. She explained Miles would be home alone at hers without his brother on Friday night. She says he'd be bored and would probably feel rejected. She says he, magically, wouldn't mind on the weekend just because he's at his own house. When I brought up she has another son Miles could play with, she told me it's not the same. I told her I couldn't do the weekend because we are busy. She asked about the weekend after next, and I informed her we are busy most weekends as all my kids play competitive sport. She told me I could have both on Friday or neither. I told her it would be neither and hope that she's happy trying to destroy her son's relationship with his best friend. At which point she invited Max over on Friday. I told her no because I had fun things planned for my kids and her son if she would let him come alone. We went back and forth for a bit, over text. At one point she said that I don't understand what it's like balancing a tricky family dynamic. I told her it's not my fault she decided to be 1 out of 4 of some guy's baby mamas. She replied, "I'm glad to finally know how you really feel about my family," and added that my son would not be invited to her house in the future. I told her it was probably for the best as I shouldn't have really exposed my son to such a messed up family situation in the first place. Although my husband agreed about me putting my foot down regarding the mom's insistence on Miles always being invited, he has said I handled the whole thing wrong and I was an asshole for insulting their family. I'm not sure I agree. She knows her situation is messed up. Your judgmental and rude behavior towards your son's friend and her family is destructive and uncalled for. Making assumptions and insults only serves to harm relationships, not strengthen them. It would have been more mature to set a boundary without resorting to cruelty, and understand that families come in all shapes and sizes. Your son's friendship may suffer because of your actions, not hers. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.